Hello and welcome to the Women's College Basketball Tournament Preview. I'm your host, Randall Gim, and this is presented by Nuts and Bolts Sports. And we have three fantastic Nuts and Bolts Sports contributors with us today. We have Jeffrey Newholm, we have Lamar, and Mr. Ty Jordan, straight out of Uconn. How are you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
Pretty good.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Glad to have you guys here. So we are going to dive right into each division, spend about 15 minutes on each division, and talk about what teams we're excited to see, what matchups we want to see, what players we want to see, and we're going to give you all some picks too. So we are going to start in the Greensboro division. Sorry, not diversion. This might be a little diversion that you can't see the rest of our faces, but that's neither here nor there. And we got South Carolina as the number one overall seed. Ty, let me kick it over to you first. Did they get that right?
Yeah, of course, man. They were the most dominant team throughout this season in women's college basketball, and they have the most dominant player in the world at this point. Aaliyah Boston, she's been ridiculous, and she's been in college basketball. Right now, she's averaging 17 points a game, just about 13 rebounds, shooting 55% from the field, and that's kind of insane for a big. And, not only is she a problem on the offensive end of the floor, she's also a problem on the defensive end of the floor, averaging almost a steal and a half a game to go along with almost 3 blocks. And, with her being the forefront of that defense and that offense with the talented experience backcourt of Cook and Henderson, they 1,000% got that right. Even though they're coming off a loss to Kentucky in the SEC tournament, they're going to come into this NCAA tournament with a different fire and hunger now. And, I feel bad for every team that's in South Carolina's corner of the bracket.
Lamar, did Kentucky beating South Carolina, like Ty mentioned, did that give other teams a blueprint on how to get it done?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just South Carolina didn't play that well. They was up by like 10 at one point in the game, up by I think 20 at one point in the game. I just think it was Kentucky got hot and South Carolina got lackadaisical and uh, Edwards hit the game, amazing game winning shot, but still feel that it's their championship to lose.
I would have to agree. Jeffrey, do you think that South Carolina's poor free throw shooting and just late game errors is that gonna bite them in the butt, or is that that you think they're going to be able to fix that come tournament time?
Well, my perspective in South Carolina, I 100% agree with Ty. They deserve to be number one overall seed. I think they'll advance through this regional. I don't know if they're going to win everything just because they're kind of a tough luck program. Now, I know what you're going to say. They won the national championship. Well, of course, unfortunately, all anyone wanted to talk about was Mississippi State beating UConn. No one wanted to talk about State about win the national championship. Oh no! Why would we talk about that? It's Mississippi State beat UConn. Mississippi State beat UConn. It's about winning the national championship. So that one year they won it, they don't get credit for accomplishment. And every other year, Don Staley, it's been awfully tough luck. Now, thankfully for them, they're in number one overall seed. They have a pretty manageable regional. I see Arizona to play them in 316. That'd be tough. They had to play Arizona. I think they didn't quite have the best regular season, but let's use our common sense. They're a hell of a program after what they did against UConn last year, especially all of the national championship game. So there are some chinks in the armor for South Carolina. There's not enough chinks for me to think they're going to lose in this regional.
Yeah, they're definitely making out the first, making out the second, and then going up against Arizona or maybe even North Carolina up in that third round. It could be shaky for them. I have extreme faith in this woman right here, Dawn Staley. She's the greatest coach, and I feel like she could have been an NBA coach in my opinion. But so with her at the helm, like I don't see them losing. But that free throw shooting is really bad. You could have made those last two free throws at the end of Kentucky game, and you would have won that game. Like you would have been obviously a much better position to win. And whoever shot those free throws was 2 of 4 for the night and 74% on the season. So it's not good enough when it comes. Those are free ones for a reason. You need to make them. Going back to the overlooking of the division, is there any teams in there that you're really excited about, Lamar?
Excited about UNLV. They've had a great season this year. Sucks they drawed Arizona in the first round because I was going to pick UNLV as one of my upset picks, but now I don't, I don't think they can beat Arizona. But I wouldn't be shocked.
Right.
Yeah.
Ty, how you feeling about Iowa?
Yeah, man. Iowa is definitely a team to watch. Caitlin Clark, she's arguably the most talented and, one of the most exciting players to watch in the game of college basketball. I mean, she's putting up borderline triple double numbers as a sophomore in college. 27 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. These aren't things that you hear about on the day in women's college basketball. And, Iowa's riding hot. They're coming off of a Big Ten championship, beating I think 3 seed Indiana and another part of the bracket to take home that title. So, when you have one of the best players in the game on your side, and you're riding a high going into March, Cinderella stories have you all the time, even though they're a 2 seed.
Yeah, and we all know Caitlin Clark is going to get hers, and it's all about those others that are around her. We got Monica Cesano, Kate Martin, and many others that need to show up in order for their offense to be well spread out and for Caitlin to eat, because we all know she's going to be there. Jeffrey, is
Yes,
that
sir.
going to be an issue going into the tournament, or do you think those others are going to be able to step up in their roles?
For Iowa,
Yeah.
well, the way I look at it is, as my friends know, I tend to be too much of a cynic in life. I've been pretty skeptical of Iowa because we're hearing, and rightfully so, Caitlin Clark, Caitlin Clark, Caitlin Clark. But after you saw when Megan Gustafson played for Iowa, you need more than just one great player if you want to advance far. But what's overlooked is that in the Big Ten tournament and leading up to it, Clark did get some contributions from her teammates. It's not all just Clark. It's just kind of the shame of basketball media these days that we only focus on that one big shot, that one big tweet, that one big player. And Iowa is more than that. They're not just Clark. But Clark does need some help, especially if they'll. I know we always tend to look further and further ahead in the bracket, right? It's just what everyone does. If they play South Carolina in the Elite Eight, there Caitlin Clark can't do it all on her own. But first they just gotta take care of business on their home court. Iowa has not, because as we originally know, the top 16 seasons tournament all host the first 2 rounds. So Iowa has to begin by defending home court, get their rotation tweaked, make sure Clark has enough help, and by golly, they go all the way to Final Four if South Carolina if they get a little bit of help from South Carolina and they play a fantastic game. Obviously, Iowa reaching the Final Four.
I would have to agree, Jeffrey. They're such an exciting team, and they have been consistent for the most part. And so I don't know why you'd bet against them. Looking further into that division, do you guys have any sleepers coming out of there? I know Lamar mentioned UNLV, but he doesn't think he's too confident against Arizona. Ty, do you have any picks for a sleeper in that Greensboro division?
I wouldn't say necessarily a sleeper, but I think what you guys have been talking about with South Carolina is just their free throw shooting and, kind of just their play overall. For me, I don't think it's an issue down the stretch. Maybe when they get to the Final Four, when they play those 1 and 2 seeds or even a sleeper. But for them, it's just keeping their foot on the pedal for the entire 40 minutes of that game, not letting what happened with Kentucky happen again. If you get a team up by 20, you should be having them down by 40 before the game ends. Just having that momentum and keeping that pressure on the team no matter what is going to be key for them down the stretch.
I agree wholeheartedly. Anything else you guys would like to add on that division?
Yeah, look out for DePaul. I know they have to play in the new first four you have, but this is a program that's been knocking on that Sweet 16 door for years now. I remember Kennedy Carter had a thing or two to say about them making the Sweet 16 several years ago, but boy, oh boy, this is laughably underseeded team. You got DePaul in the first four. What? Boy, if now it's a big if. If they beat Dayton, then they have a tough road. They have to play Georgia and then presumably Iowa State, but boy, I counted against Doug Bruno and his blue platoon and white platoon at your own peril.
If I could just chime in real quick, Anissa Morrow, she's arguably one of the best undersized big men in the country, averaging 21 points. Big East all first team, Big East freshman in the year. She is a force to be reckoned with down low in the paint.
Yeah,
absolutely. Morrow's a beast.
Man, yeah, and NC State, man, I was just watching some highlights, and they are able to control the post extremely well. Like they're able to work out of it, and they're able to fake passes into the post and get around. We'll talk about that later, but that's just what came to my mind immediately. Let's move on to the Wichita Division. So we got Louisville as the number one seed, extremely well defensive team, going up against U Albany, and then number two Baylor, which could have arguably been a number one seed as well. Lamar, how are you feeling about this division overall? And are the top seeds going to be able to hold true?
I think so. Some teams on there could be scary though. Like Oregon's playing well. Michigan kind of fell off towards the end, but if they can get it together,
Yep.
they can make a run. Uh, Gonzaga shoots a lot of threes, so if they get hot, they can
Yeah, and
beat anybody.
they hit some clutch shots down the
Yeah.
stretch to
Then there's then
win their
there's BY,
tournament as well.
there's BYU who I can't remember BYU player or coach about a month ago said they play their best, they can beat anybody. So it's gonna be interesting.
And Ty, initial reactions to the Wichita State division, or sorry, Wichita division?
Personally, I think Louisville getting the one seed is kind of a stretch.
I
From what
agree.
I've seen, very inconsistent throughout the year. They obviously just had a really tough loss to Miami in the ACC tournament. And even just mid-season, I got to witness them play Uconn in the tournament, and they didn't look all that impressive against the Uconn team that was depleted. So, coming out of the ACC where NC State is really the favorite, I think that Louisville is definitely going to be one of those one seeds that can get knocked out. We're thinking Sweet 16, Elite 8.
And I agree with that sentiment because, they're kind of undersized as well. Like, although they're very athletic and very quick on the defensive end, they can just, other teams can outsmart them if they're able to stay patient and not play at their pace. Jeffrey, what are your initial reactions to the Wichita division?
Well, I'm probably a bit higher on Louisville than Ty is, but I agree with Baylor. They're an awfully good two seed. Like they meet the new boss just as good as the old boss. Kim Mulkey out, Nikki Collin in. They haven't missed a beat except of costly loss to Texas in the Big 12 tournament final. Probably cost them number one seed, but still a dangerous team. There's one game I just have to call out here. Brigham Young Villanova, the Big East championship final. The announcers were saying, how can Villanova's got to be an NCAA tournament team? How considering how beating UConn, UConn's first conference loss since 2013 in Connecticut, and then investing in the Big East final, and that they were not just in; they're comfortably in, not even in the first four. And BYU, boy, Gonzaga has owned the West Coast Conference in men's and women's basketball for a long time. BYU said, you know what? We're fed up with this. We're going to go all out. They dominated the WCC, couldn't quite win the conference tournament final, but this is as dangerous and scary as a mid-major program you're going to see out there. So this bracket, by golly, got some great games, particularly Tennessee, Oregon in the second round. Holy cow! Talk about a clash of titans. So I say that the first two seeds are probably a pretty big, fairly significant step up over everyone else, but there's going to be a lot of intrigue in this regional.
So if Baylor's going to go down, what do you think is going to be their Achilles heel, if anything? I'll leave that open to anybody.
Baylor, this is a bit of a transition year. The problem not just the problem, again, under Kim Mulkey, they would put up some absolutely laughable one-sided scores. Several years ago, I don't remember who it was. They won the game by 100. I remember when they played Abilene Christian in the first round. Lauren Cox, Abilene Christian tried to inbound. She just jumped up and swatted the ball. It went five rows into the seats, so it was such an easy play for her.
Right.
But similar to UConn in the American Conference, their amazing success in the regular season hasn't always translated to the NCAA tournament. But I can see that being different this year because the Big 12 was much more competitive In fact, Baylor lost its first two Big 12 games, and they had to fight to come back to win the conference. Did so easily by beating Iowa State by 25 to the conference outright, but then, as I said, losing to Texas. Losing to Texas. So they certainly have, and boy, oh boy, Mulkey was such a good recruiter. They still have a fantastic roster. I can't imagine they're going to have too much trouble against Hawaii or whoever they play in the second round. South Dakota State could be a bit of a wild card. It's going to be interesting to see when, and then tournament, of course, it's never if, it's always when. When they finally play a team, I don't know if it's Louisville, as Ty was alluding to, that's equal to them or a bit better. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond. Still in the transition phase to a new coach. It's always a big challenge for the players.
I think Louisville and Haley Van Lith are going to be grinding every game. I don't think it's going to be any. I don't know. Maybe in the first round it might be a decided win. More than 10 points, but I feel like going further and further, those games are going to get closer and closer for that team, and who knows how sustainable that is. So Haley Van Lith is someone that's I'm going to be watching as someone that's a leader on that team, and she played in the Olympics, played in 3x3 games, and she's always been a very effective scorer and a very effective leader on both ends. So, what other players are you watching coming out of the Wichita Division, Lamar?
I'm watching Nas Hillman and Gonzalez from BYU.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a heck of a player. She helped lead. She's one of the leaders of BYU team that got their program turned around.
And what do you feel is their strengths as individuals?
Gonzalez do a little bit of everything. Hillman, she's good in the painting and on rebounds.
Smooth,
Yeah.
smooth. Ty, are you keeping your eyes on anyone in the Wichita Division?
Of course, man. I think for me, it's Maddie Siegrist out of Villanova. I mean, Big East Player of the Year, 27 points a game, 9 rebounds. I mean, she's a workhorse. She has a motor. She can beat you on all three levels offensively. She's great on the defensive boards. And if Villanova hopes to make an impact or make, any sort of run in this tournament, it's going to have to be through her. They can shoot the ball well from three at times. Sometimes they can be streaky. But if Maddie Siegrist is on and Villanova is hitting their threes, BYU got to watch out.
Jeffrey, do you agree with that statement, or do you feel like there's somebody else that might be more important to watch?
I wish I could pick a better pick than Maddie, but I can't because Maddie Siegrist is just the one player I'm looking to watch. I watched. Well, first of all, I can't emphasize enough that upset against Uconn that really reinforced Villanova's status as a truly high major women's basketball program. The Big East is for real, folks. It's time to stop putting them as being like a namby-pamby. I mean, no. They got 4 teams in the tournament, and UConn has raised the bar. It's not just UConn, because UConn had numerous close games, even beside the one they won, they lost. And Maddie in the Big East final, now Villanova was rather overwhelmed, but she kept fighting, and that's really admirable. And this first round matchup, I know 11-6 is the women's version of 5-12 in the men's bracket. Is that 11 seed? They got a real good chance of winning. So can Maddie raise her level, maintain her level of excellence now that the lights are a bit brighter? The Big East, back in the day before it split up into the American and the Big East was the show of women's basketball. We're starting to see that get to be the case again. And it's only fitting that the Big East Player of the Year raises her level again now that the bright lights are back on.
Well said, Jeffrey. Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's a good way to wrap up that division. And we will move on to the Bridgeport division with number 1 NC State, as I referenced a little earlier, and featuring, of course, Uconn with one of the most exciting players in the country, local Minnesotan, Paige Beckers. I'm really excited about this division, especially with Kentucky in there with the hot streak they've been on. Kansas State also just a really good team. And then, Florida Gulf Coast is in the next one. Never mind. Okay. So, Lamar, let's go back to you, my man. Initial reactions to the Bridgeport division, and what are you looking out for in the first round?
Yeah, I like this bracket. It's pretty good. Looking at that Kentucky Princeton game, see if Kentucky can keep that hot streak going. But they was 9-11 at one point, and I had text a buddy of mine and said, "We're on Kentucky. They're pretty much done." And after I said that, they went 10 in a row. So I want to see if they can carry that hot streak into the tournament and see if they can make a little run.
I agree, man. They're going to be really fun to watch, especially just as the 6 seeds. I feel like they might be, if they had done better early on, I feel like they could have been, 3 or 4
Oh,
easy.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, back to you, sir. Who are you watching as individual players in the Bridgeport Division?
Well, individual players, when it comes to UConn, there's just so many. But Paige Beckers, she's a wild card. I use the term wild card a lot because it's so unpredictable, but she really is a wild card for the whole tournament. She suffered a non-contact injury early in the season against Notre Dame. It was absolutely gruesome. She missed over 2 months. She got back into the lineup, but not as a starter. And she had her struggles. She only played 7 minutes in the Big East tournament final. And if UConn is to win the national championship, they need Paige to be very close to 100%. Now, they proved that even without her, they're still a very talented team. But at UConn, just making the Final Four, that's not enough anymore. They got to win it. And if they're going to win it, I can't emphasize enough, they need Paige to be full health or very close to it. And these first 2 games in the Stores Regional, I'm not just making this up, these are some really good competition. Playing Mercer, that is a heck of a 15 seed. I remember several years ago, Mercer played Iowa, and Iowa's coach was furious that they played Mercer in the 15 seed. This is a program which is built up for several years, got to be. Now, I know the Southern Conference is not quite the best conference, but that doesn't matter to Mercer. They've developed year in and year out to really be a low major, mid-major conference power. In the second round, if UConn is to play UCF, those are long-standing, bitter rivals in the American Conference. And boy, oh boy, would UCF love to get another shot at UConn. So yes, Paige Beckers, she's probably the most, other than Caitlin Clark now, who's also doing very well. Paige is probably the best well-known player in the whole tournament field, but she's got some work to do to get back into playing shape. And if she can't do that, UConn cannot win the championship. I said it.
And the rest of the UConn players have been able to show that they are able to step up, and they were able to keep that record and keep that 2 seed. Ty, you're very close with the team. Obviously, you could tell us a little bit about your background there. What are you seeing from the others when it comes to everybody else besides Paige and how they're playing without her?
Yeah, no, for sure. So before I get into it, I'm actually a practice player for the women's team. So I've been around the program for the past 4 years, and it's been a privilege and an opportunity, and I've loved every moment of it. But Jeffrey, to say that they can't win the national championship without Paige Beckers is actually ridiculous.
Oh,
this
no.
this team is not the same team from when they played South Carolina and in the battle for Atlantis. They're not the same team that lost to Georgia Tech. They're not the same team that lost to Louisville, and they're not the same team that lost to Villanova. I know you've been high on Villanova beating them and ending the streak, but you have to understand UConn had 7 players going into the game, 5 starters, and 2 players that rarely see minutes off the bench. Now, for UConn, yes, Paige being 100% healthy is obviously the key. Is that the whole truth? I couldn't tell you, but they are 1,000% the team that nobody wants to play in this tournament. They have a different fire lit underneath them, and they have something to prove. I mean, Kristen Williams' game since mid-January has skyrocketed. Avina Westbrook, Azzi Fudd, Nika Mule, the Big East Defensive Player of the Year. She is arguably the best defensive guard in college basketball. UConn is going to be a force to reckon with down the stretch, and they have too many weapons for any team to take away all at the same time.
Ty, I'm probably an even bigger Husky fan than you. I'm just trying to be a realist here. The way the rotation is, Aaliyah Edwards in the starting lineup. Oh no, she makes so many silly mistakes. They're just not. You have to understand, Ty, that this, as Gino says, the expectations at UConn are just flat out ridiculous. I just remembered their tournament performance the last several years between the Brianna Stewart and Paige Beckers era. they just keep running into a brick wall. They are a very good team without Paige Beckers. I can't imagine they would beat Stanford and South Carolina without them. And that's the threshold of success for the Huskies at this point, winning the national championship. They can make the Final Four with a mismatch of players coming in and out. I love UConn, but I honestly don't think they can win everything, which is the goal, without Paige Beckers.
Hey
Lamar,
man,
how do
we'll
you feel
respect the
about
main
those
three.
sentiments?
Yeah, I think they can win the first couple rounds without Placeburgers playing well, but when you start getting into the Elite Eight and playing Stanford and all them teams like that, your players, your star players are going to have to rise to the occasion, as well as role players too. But I mean, star players is what's going to put you over the top.
With the performance of the role players and everybody else, that it gives them confidence coming into the tournament, and I feel like they're going to be able to play their roles more efficiently now that they've seen success coming into it, and so it's an ideal situation for them. Well, that's all I'll say on that. Let's talk a little bit of NC State, guys. What makes them so good, and what are some teams that might be able to give them troubles early?
Well, similar to Stanford, they're a very congealed team. They play as a team. They are the definition of the team. There's no one standout player like we were talking about Caitlin Clark before. There's no player on that roster that averages over 13 points a game, and I think that shows that they need a role player to play their role specifically every night to be successful, and it's worked. 29-3 ACC tournament championships. I think the only unfortunate thing for them in their seeding is that they're in Bridgeport. I mean, I don't want to bring it back to UConn, but every game for UConn in this bracket is going to be a home game, and that's going to work for them. Unfortunately for NC State, it's not going to be the same thing. So I'm not saying it's going to be their downfall, but it's for sure going to play a factor going forward in the tournament.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like, once if UConn gets to the Final Four, man, we're gonna be rolling deep here with Minnesotans rooting for Page. It's gonna be insane. I'm sure that's gonna be the majority of the ticket buyers. Um, Jeffrey, how do you feel about NC State?
Boy, I would feel really good about them if they were in any other region except the Bridgeport region. We went through this several years ago in Oregon when they had Sabrina Ionescu. They were an absolute power. They had a regional in Spokane, I think it was, and it was 100. Mississippi State back when they had Vic Schaefer. They were the one seed, but they had to play pretty much at Oregon as the two seed, and Oregon was just too much for the Bulldogs. And it's just a really unfortunate situation about when you got a team which basically would be a home game in the sectionals, but they're not the one seed. But at the same time, you want to make sure that we have a good turnout for these games. You want to make sure we have the passionate fans at women's basketball. So there's not really a right answer to this situation. NC State, they remind me of Maryland several years ago, back in the absolute heyday Final Four of Maryland, that they have a lot of talented players, but there's not that one star to push them over the top. And last year there was some pretty bad coaching for NC State with other coach calling timeout when they didn't have the ball, and that was their last timeout. So kind of hard to advance the ball when you don't have any timeouts, coach. I mean, come on.
That sounds like
I
something I would do.
I'm probably being overly skeptical. I think really they're just a fine team. I just can't believe it until I've seen it, and no one has seen nor NC State make it to that Final Four for a very long time. So call me overly skeptical. I understand, but in terms of them being a national championship contender, I need to see it first.
Well said, yet again, my man. Let's move on to our final division of the evening, the Spokane region, as Jeffrey hinted towards. So obviously Stanford number one, Texas number two, and so on and so forth. I like Virginia Tech. They put up against a good fight against NC State. Um, also like LSU. LSU might be able to go further than most people think. Lamar, starting off with the Spokane region, what sticks out to you the most?
Um, I like LSU too. Kayla Pointer, she's a heck of a player. Just going to have to Alexis Morris will have to get healthy if they want to make a deep run in that bracket. But this is a pretty good bracket too. But I really like Delaware myself. So I haven't seen Jasmine Dickey play. Check that game out. Average 25 points a game and 10.2 rebounds a game. She's outstanding in the wart. So I'm looking forward to seeing her in a bigger stage. When
That'll
she
be
gets at Delaware
that'll be this Friday.
against Maryland.
hmm Ty, what are you feeling about the Spokane region, and what sticks out to you?
What sticks out to me is it has the returning national champion. Uh, Stanford 28-3, Pac-12 championship. I mean, they're the real deal. They're one of those 2 to 3 teams that come to mind when you think of women's college basketball.
Sorry to
Um, you know,
interrupt you really quick. How many returners do they have on that team? Do you know for
um,
sure?
I don't know for a fact, but I know they did not lose many. I
Right.
think they might have lost 2 to 3 players max. And I mean, Haley Jones, Cameron Brink, they both came back. They both played in last year's national championship against Arizona, and it's a team that you look at South Carolina. We say South Carolina's been so dominant, and they get lost in South Carolina's shadow, but they have what it takes to win a national championship,
Right.
and that's why they're the 1 seed and they're part of the bracket. But like I said, it's time for them to step up, defend their title. Jones and Brink, those are going to be the 2 players to watch. But definitely you heard it from me first. They're going to be in the Final Four for sure.
And we'll get to those picks later. Jeffrey, kick it over to you, my man. Personally, I want to see Florida Gulf Coast. They got some shooters over there, and I feel like they could make some noise. What are you seeing out of Spokane region?
Yeah, Florida Gulf Coast. I agree. Like the women's committee seems to have such little respect for mid-major programs. I remember several years ago, Princeton had an undefeated season. They were given an 8 seed. Let me hold up. An undefeated team gets an 8 seed. What the heck? And so
Yeah,
we have 29-2 Florida Gulf Coast team, and they're a 12 seed.
the
Now I
the
know they're
only
going.
critique, right, would be the level of competition that they're playing, but you play who's in front of you. So
Who cares? They're 29-2. I don't care if they're playing Sisters of the Board. They're 29-2. I don't. It is. I don't care how weak your competition is. It is very difficult to maintain that level of consistency. I mean, a 12 seed, and it's not going to be easy. I can see them maybe Virginia Tech, but Maryland is just such a solid program. They didn't have quite their best year this year, but they're still a team which no one's really going to want to play. Stanford, I won't talk about them too much now, but I think they're kind of in the forgotten team this year because there's so much hype, and rightfully so. But South Carolina, this is a scary good Stanford team. I I really have a hard time seeing really anyone beating them this postseason, except maybe when you get to the end. We'll talk about that a bit more later. But and Texas as a 2 seed, that's pretty darn good 2 seed. As I said before, knocking on the door and making the Final Four, never been quite able to make it, but they're coming off a big confidence building win over Baylor in the Big 12 final, finally dethroning the Lady Bears. Texas is, I don't know if this is their year, but there's eventually, every time was effort left with 9 years, finally brings a win. You keep knocking on that door. Eventually, one of your women is going to get tired and knock that door down. And maybe this is Texas' year to do that, but I don't think I'm willing to bet against Stanford. They're just so immensely talented this year.
I would have to agree. And then going back to the other side of the bracket, you got teams like Utah, and Arkansas. Like, I think that's going to be a good 7-10 matchup. What matchups are you most looking forward to in the Spokane region there, Lamar?
Delaware and Maryland.
And why is that?
It's because they got the player I'm most excited to see in the tournament, and Maryland was picked to be at the top, but they kind of fell off in the season. So I want to see if there's a chance for upset there. So I think it should be an interesting game.
Absolutely. Ty, what about you, my man?
Yeah, for me, it's actually that 8-9 matchup between Kansas and Georgia Tech. I mean, Georgia Tech has Laurel Kubash. She's one of the finalists for the Defensive Player of the Year. And like I said before, they beat a Uconn team that was down, but beating Uconn is definitely a monumental occasion no matter what. So, and then Kansas isn't a bad team out of the Big 12, a couple shooters. So I think that's a good 8-9 matchup to watch in the tournament.
Yeah, as we saw in those Kansas clips, man, they're pulling up from deep. I was like, what? And with high arcs too, looking like Dirk Nowitzki out there. Jeffrey, last thoughts on the Spokane region, my man.
Right. Every time a new NCAA women's tournament comes around, what I'm going to say is a 15 or a 14 finally going to win this year. A 15 and a 14 have never won in the history of the tournament. And maybe Jackson State, big maybe, right? You're going against Kim Mulkey, but they won 20 games in a row going into this tournament. We talked all about momentum. 20 in a row is a pretty big deal. So I don't know about Montana State, no. Fairfield, no. But Jackson State, Louisiana State is a program. They had an amazing string of success under the old regime with Sylvia Foles dominating for them with the 5 Final Fours in a row. They had a pretty big dip. Now they got their coach, Kim Mulkey. They're trying to build their way up. But wouldn't it be, I know there's not many upsets in the women's tournament, but wouldn't it be just like March Madness, find a team that's struggled for a while, they're starting to get their act together, all of a sudden they get bamboozled by a team that's not afraid of them. So I wouldn't go so far as say you heard it here first, but boy, this got to be the year 15 or 14 is going to win. It's got to be. It's the law of averages, right? Oh, it's got to happen.
Man, LSU, that's going to be a hard hill to climb for sure if they want to get through the first round even. But then when you get to Ohio State, Missouri State, or Florida State, like I feel like LSU or Jackson State could take either one of those teams. So we gotta wrap this up with some way too early picks for Final Four and MVP of the tournament. So let's just start off with Final Four picks. And Lamar, if you got them, you can share them with the group.
South Carolina, Baylor, Uconn, and Stanford.
Nice. Ty, any are you in agreement with Mr. Lamar, or do you feel you got any differences?
For a majority, we're the same. I definitely have Stanford versus UConn, and for me, I have South Carolina versus Oregon. I think Oregon's size is going to be a really big factor going through this field of the tournament.
Nice, good pick with the 5 seed. I like it. Jeffrey, what about you, sir?
Boy, Oregon's a pretty bold pick. Good for you, Ty. But I have the exact same. I reached it independently. I promise. I have the exact same Final Four as Lamar. I got South Carolina, Baylor, Stanford, and UConn. And I would say Haley Jones is MVP for Stanford as they defend their championship.
I like that. I don't know if you guys could tell by the way I was structuring my questions earlier, but I do see some holes in South Carolina, and if any of the 1 seeds are going to go down, I would have to pick them. Like I don't see, or I do see Louisville being able to be beaten, but South Carolina, I don't know. They've just been real shoddy, and they haven't seemed to be mentally affordable even before the tournament. And when the bright lights are on, who knows if this group is going to be able to put it together. But like we talked about earlier, Louisville being small, NC State, I think they're going to make it out. Sorry, UConn. So Stanford, NC State, taking the 1s, and then Baylor. And man, I don't know who's coming out of Greensboro. I mean, I guess it would have to be Iowa. I'll take Iowa. Can't bet against Caitlin Clark, sniper, and just like confidence just oozes out of her. She's just a crazy player that everybody wants to come see. And if I had the means, I'd drive down there to go see her too. Only like a couple hour drive. Anything else you guys want to add on to the women's college basketball tournament? Leave it open.
If I could just add a player to watch real quick, Angel Reese out of Maryland. She's going to be a very fun individual to watch. Big athletic forward, has guard-like skills. another Defensive Player of the Year finalist, 17 points a game to go along with 11 rebounds in a year for Maryland that maybe wasn't what's expected, but definitely for sure watch her. And next year, definitely watch out for Maryland and the Terps.
Do you have a comparison for her as like, maybe a player that she plays like in the NBA, WNBA?
I mean, as far as skill, I mean, it's kind of hard to compare NBA to college women's basketball. I mean, I guess you could say skill set wise, I'd say Kevin Durant just because she has the length and the scoring ability, maybe not from like the jump shot type of range, but just her athleticism, the way she can defend. But just her game as well. She's also young. She's a sophomore, just going ahead, like looking forward ahead in life. And in college basketball, she's going to be one of those names, that's going to get called to be an All-American by the time she's done.
I like it. Lamar, anything else to add?
If it does come down to Stanford and South Carolina, Stanford will have to figure out how to handle South Carolina's ball pressure, because the last two times they played, if you notice, Stanford jumped off to the big lead. Then the second half, South Carolina put that ball pressure on them. They start throwing the ball away, can't get the ball up court. So they're going to have to figure that out if it comes down to them, the two teams. There's up by like 15 points this year against South Carolina. Then Stanford got getting ball pressure, throwing the ball out of bounds, throwing the ball away, getting picked. It's like they're going to have to figure that out.
Yep. Jeffrey, we'll wrap it up with you, sir. Right.
Of all the teams to watch, I say let's go Lady Vols, because they have been struggling, probably too strong word. They haven't lived up to the level of expectations Pat Summitt left in quite a while. They haven't been to the Final Four now since 2008, and they got to such a good start this season. But then they lost 3 out of 5 games in the middle of the year. Uconn, he beat them quite handily, but they still hung on to their hosting status. There's still a host in the first 2 rounds. It's just the year they finally break through. On Saturday, there's ESPN has the exclusive rights to the tournament. There's 2 games on ABC, which is, of course, the widest viewing window. Noon is Uconn. 2 o'clock is Tennessee, Central Time. That is the way it should be. So Uconn, it looks like they may be starting to regain the momentum and prestige they had in the Breanna Stewart era. They got Paige Becker. Hopefully she's back. They got a great chance. Is Tennessee probably going to break through? At least make the Sweet 16? I'm with Ty. Oregon's awfully tough, but baby steps. Is this the year Lady Vols are finally going to make the Sweet 16? And then from there, who knows? Oh, women's basketball needs that so badly. You just never. This is the number one rule of March Madness. I don't care how good you are. You never know until you play the game.
Right. Jeffrey, you've been my closeout man all day. You've been killing it. Thank you very much. And gentlemen, Ty and Lamar, you guys did a fantastic job. Thank you for being here and sharing your expertise with us. Again, this is your host, Randall Gim, of the Women's College Basketball Tournament Preview. Thank you for joining us, presented by Nuts and Bolts Sports, and have a great evening.
March is here and the madness has officially begun. It's time for you to shoot your shot and score big on the nonstop action with MyBookie. Predict winners in each round of the MyBookie bracket contest for a chance to win a Bitcoin, a Doodle NFT currently valued at over $50,000 and over $100,000 more in cash prizes. Whether you're filling out multiple brackets, betting the national championship winner, or simply looking for player and game props, MyBookie has you covered. Sign up today with MyBookie and use promo code TEAMNBS to make your first deposit, earning a free entry into the My Bracket contest. Selections for the bracket will officially begin on March 13th and close March 17th at 12 p.m. noon, so make sure you get your deposit in now with Team NBS to secure that free entry. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.